Hello, good morning, and welcome back to the Morning Bulletin here on the Blood Red channel. I'm your host, Edward Kay. Joining me this morning is James Martin, and we are, of course, going to be discussing Alexis Mac Allister once again. Liverpool electing not to issue an announcement that he signed yesterday. I think we were all sort of geared up and waiting for that with a few videos in the drafts. But, we'll go through the same thing again today. I think the biggest development yesterday, we came on here yesterday morning and was speaking about a possible £45 million price tag for Mac Allister and how much of a bargain that would be. Fabrizio Romano reporting yesterday that he's in fact going to be coming to Liverpool for about £35 million as per his release clause. I mean, how big of a bargain is that, James?
Yeah, it's a massive bargain. I mean, you're right. We're all on tenterhooks. I've got tweet notifications on for Liverpool, like I'm sure a lot of us do. I just saw one come through now. I thought, are we going to find out on air that he signed? But I think it's something to do with the Anfield redevelopment. But it's a huge bargain if that price is correct. I'm sure we'll hear more from different sources as the move develops and is finalised. I feel like it might be one of those where we never know the exact fee. I think officially it's going to be undisclosed, and I'm sure you'll have sort of sources on Brighton's side of the fence maybe saying it's a little bit higher, and then maybe Liverpool journalists going a little bit lower. But the fact that 35 million figure comes from Romano, he's sort of neutral in that sense. He hasn't got a foot in either camp. So if that is in fact the genuine fee, then that is just incredible business from Liverpool. I mean, it's because of a release clause, we know that, but had to be there to take advantage of it. I'm sure lots of clubs were on the scene, if indeed they were also aware of the clause being that low. So Liverpool still had to win that race. They had to get the business done early, and it'll be nice when the announcement is finally through to confirm that is what's happened.
Yeah, as you say, Liverpool sort of winning the race. They're finding out about that release clause. Obviously, not sure how many other clubs knew about it or maybe knew how much it was. How important do you think it is that Liverpool have managed to get, or seemingly managed to get, this deal sort of over the line relatively early in the window with such a low release clause for such a good player? It's like you say, there's no doubt other clubs will have been sniffing around for him. So how crucial was it that he was sort of the first one through the door for Liverpool this summer?
Yeah, I think it was vital. I think it could very easily have become a saga. We know Manchester United were interested. And I think, like you say, if more people had sort of become aware of the clause, it's hard to imagine that, basically any top six side wouldn't have had an interest. I'm sure they would have seen it as an astute signing, especially as so many clubs do seem to be on the lookout for more midfielders at the minute. It's almost miraculous in the market that deal can still be done. Brighton don't tend to like doing these release clauses, but there was a risk, wasn't there, that they'd ultimately lose him for free. So there's clearly been a compromise there somewhere along the line. But yeah, to get this kind of deal from a club renowned for extracting the absolute maximum value out of its players, it didn't seem possible, like I say. And yeah, great to get it done early as well. Great to get it done at this price. It means that, it does seem a lot more plausible that at least sort of two more midfielders can come through the door. We were wondering if maybe it would have to be a compromise on maybe Liverpool signing two midfielders in total, especially with Curtis Jones becoming a more viable option towards the end of the season. But if the sort of marquee target, after Bellingham in any case, can come in for this sort of price, it does seem very plausible that Liverpool can bring in two more before the end of the window and then maybe look at the defence as well.
Yeah, you mentioned something I wanted to discuss there. Obviously, Brighton are renowned for being able to get the most out of other clubs when their players go. I mean, they took Chelsea to the cleaners for Cucurella and for their manager as well. If you look at it, really, I think they paid about 20 million to get Potter out of there. Liverpool have managed, obviously, this release clause would have been put in. I think he signed a new contract back in October. Liverpool have managed to find out about it and get that triggered. I mean, do you think whoever comes in for Caicedo now, I doubt Liverpool will be taking two midfielders off of Brighton this summer, but yeah, do you think whoever comes in for Caicedo now will end up paying a bit of a Mac Allister tax?
It's possible, isn't it? I think the way Brighton operate, they'd have tried to, squeeze the absolute most out of bidders for Caicedo anyway. And, they knew the risks when they put that Mac Allister clause in. I mean, they knew someone would trigger it realistically. That they probably realised that would happen. So Yeah, they'll be disappointed to have to take the hit, if you like, on Mac Allister. But I think maybe Caicedo will play out as it would have done anyway. But it's certainly going to be a lot more expensive when you consider that they probably have more or less equal reputations in that Brighton midfield. It's the two of them together that have been so impressive rather than one individual. And then you look at Mac Allister's World Cup feats; he's obviously gone on and won it and been a key part of that. So in a normal situation, you'd probably say Mac Allister, if anything, would go for that little bit more. But now I would not be at all surprised to see Caicedo go for more than double. I mean, if that 35 million figure is correct anyway, I mean, we've seen reports, I think, from the Telegraph that Brighton will be holding out for significantly more than 70 million, which is ominous for anyone who's interested there. Like you say, Liverpool have been mentioned in connection, but you'd think at those figures that's not going to happen. I mean, again, you can mention Jude Bellingham. Real Madrid have got that deal done for what was, I think, was said more than 100 million euros. So another sort of woolly report on exactly how much that is. But if we call it 100 million euros, it's not miles and miles apart from what Brighton want for Caicedo. So given that Liverpool were backing out of that Bellingham race so they could spread their investment a bit more widely, you'd think that it would be another couple of players in that kind of similar bracket to Mac Allister.
Yeah, just on that, obviously his World Cup campaign, it was pretty impressive. That's really where he made a name for himself in a lot of people's eyes. How lucky do you think Liverpool are that release clause and that contract was signed in October as opposed to in January?
Yeah, very lucky. I think there's been sort of whispers that Brighton perceived 35 million to be more or less his market value when they put the clause in. Maybe that's why they were okay to put it as low as it was. But yeah, like you say, that shot up in Qatar, it seems odd in a way that that they did it when they did. But like you say, it can be explained by that risk of losing him for nothing. And if they'd waited until after the World Cup on the off chance that he had a good tournament, they would have given themselves a tiny window to get that deal agreed before other clubs could have come in and maybe gone for that free transfer. So definitely a bit of luck in the timings, but yeah, I think doubled, meaning that release clause was very quickly out of date, and I'm sure Brighton regretted it very quickly.
Yeah, you mentioned Jude Bellingham a minute ago, and I did want to. I mean, I didn't really want to discuss the transfer, but I feel like we should. Obviously, as you say, well over 100 million euros reported, add-ons as well. Just looks in the end like Liverpool have really been priced out of that kind of deal. Do you think it's a sort of deal Liverpool could have done had they, last summer, instead of sort of waiting and mortgaging the future a little bit, if they'd got, say, not necessarily Mac Allister, but a Mac Allister, a Thuram, a Kone in last summer. Do you think maybe Liverpool could have gone for Jude Bellingham this summer alongside maybe one other midfielder or a defender?
I prefer not to think about it, to be honest. Hopefully not. I hope that he was just... Well, it's hard because obviously you want Liverpool to be able to afford those kind of players, but it would be particularly galling if the only reason we couldn't go for him was because of what happened last summer. I think it's a possibility. We know that Liverpool had him as a top target for a long time, and that seems odd if it was always going to be a case of the prices getting too high. Surely they knew that for a long time now. Yeah, but obviously the scale of the investment has been mentioned as one of the reasons they've needed to back out. I think for me the likeliest thing is probably the wages. I think maybe if Liverpool had a better last summer, then they would have been able to stomach the transfer fee. I mean, we saw Nunes last summer. That was quite a big fee, not quite as much as Bellingham's gone for, obviously, but again, not a million miles away. And we have heard these sort of bullish statements from sort of sources connected to FSG in the past that they're not going to be scared of spending big in the transfer market. Obviously, we haven't seen it too many times, but I don't think the transfer fees going forward are going to be the big worries. It's the wages where those massive clubs can maybe blow Liverpool out of the water. It sounds like Bellingham's gone in at Real Madrid on a basic wage of basically what Salah's on at Liverpool. So, he's the top earner by a long way. FSG made an exception for him, but he's someone who's proved it at Liverpool over a prolonged period of years. For new signings to come in at that benchmark, I think it's unlikely they're going to want to sanction that, whoever the player is. So I think that probably played a part in it. But yeah, I think it would have been more viable if last summer had gone a bit differently.
Yeah, we'll look ahead to a couple of other potential midfield transfer targets then. Kefren Turam and Manu Kone seem to be the names on everyone's lips. They certainly are in the comments today, and they were yesterday as well. If you were going to, I mean, there's no reason, I suppose, why Liverpool couldn't go and get both. If you were going to pick one of them to sign, who would you go for, James?
It's a tricky one. They're both sort of similar profile in the sense that they're sort of similarly proven. They've had roughly the same amount of minutes in a kind of top 5 league. Obviously, neither of them have that Premier League experience that Mac Allister has. So, yeah, you're buying potential as much as current talent in both cases, but equally, you'd look at them both and say they could come straight into the team, at least straight into the squad as a viable option. So I think it's much for muchness. I'd maybe lean slightly towards Kefren Turam from what I've seen of both, but I'd certainly be satisfied with either. I'd be even more satisfied with both. But at the same time, you do look at those profiles and you think maybe if Liverpool gets one, they maybe want to look for potentially that more defensive figure as the last one through the door. It sort of remains to be seen to some extent what the plan is, whether Klopp thinks Fabinho's sort of mini resurgence at the end of the season can continue. A lot hinges, I think, on what formation Liverpool decides to play moving forward as well. Fabinho obviously looking a lot more secure with Trent Alexander-Arnold coming in next to him. So if that's the long-term plan, then maybe we can get away with it for another couple of seasons. But I think what I would be most comfortable with if we're signing 3 midfielders is another one in that kind of Thuram or Kone mould, and then someone who's at least can play number 6. Doesn't necessarily have to be a dedicated number 6, because I'm not writing Fabinho off just yet, but I think someone who could at least give the option of taking that strain off him would be welcome. So, yeah, I think on the whole, I'd go for one of the two, but obviously you'd still be looking at a very good summer if it ended up being Mac Allister, Thuram and Kone through the door.
Yeah, I agree. I think looking at somebody to sort of fill in that number 6 role, especially given we were over reliant on Bajcetic last season, and that's why he's ended up with I think it was a stress fracture. I think it might have been in his back. But yeah, over reliant on an 18-year-old isn't really going to work again next season. So hopefully we can get some more midfield reinforcements through the door. Hopefully we get a Mac Allister announcement today. That will come as soon as we get it on the Blood Red channel. So make sure you keep an eye across all of our outlets. But for now, from myself and James, it's thanks, and we'll catch you next time.